We're going to start off on Friday night with the ladies. Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor, the trilogy. It was an all-women's card. They headlined it, Madison Square Garden. That was Jake Paul's MVP promotions. And this wasn't the war of the action of the first two fights. This fight was way more technical, less exchanges, a lot more waiting. And you said it in the prediction in the lead-up to this one last week. You said that you liked Katie Taylor to win again at plus 150, but you said and broke it down, I thought, perfectly. You said that the differences would be Serrano on the inside needs to win those exchanges, and then Taylor will look to do what she does, use her legs, get some space, counter, pick her spots. And I thought that's exactly how it played out, except the difference was Serrano was trigger shy. She didn't exchange when she got in close, and she allowed Taylor to pick those spots, control range, and have her way. And I thought landed the cleaner shots, more effective shots, and got the decision the right way, as she should have. There's a lot of people thinking Serrano may have won this fight, but Katie Taylor in the end gets the win. It's the third time. She's now got the trifecta. She's won by split decision, unanimous decision, and this time, majority decision. What'd you think of the decision? What'd you think of this fight?
There's no way that it was an even fight. I thought Taylor won the fight. It wasn't scintillating. It wasn't a firestorm. First of all, I don't. People have their right to their own opinion. That's especially in this country. I mean, that's what people died for, to have your right to say what you want and to put it out there. And in sport, even less serious. Everybody a fan, everybody has an opinion. But the people that think that because it wasn't a thrill in Manila, it wasn't the first two fights, it wasn't Ward and Gaddy, it wasn't Castillo and Corrales, which is what the first two fights of Serrano-Taylor basically were. I mean, just historic, legendary throwdowns. But if it's not that, it's not a fight. It's not boxing. All of a sudden, people are like, "Oh, that's not a fight." Not everybody. Some people appreciated it, but to hear some people say, "Oh, that was, that wasn't." I understand that was disappointing as far as the action you might have been looking for. But not to appreciate what they did the first two times, what they've been through to get here, and not to appreciate the finesse, the boxing acumen, just the science of what Taylor put on. And some people say, "Oh, that was a glorified sparring match." She made it that by boxing the way she did, not allowing Serrano to close the gap, not allowing Serrano to get into those areas of geography in close where she could go to town, where she go to work. What about her expertise? The legs she used, the keeping off balance, the quick combinations. Every time Serrano tried to close the gap, bop, 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 bop. It was like walking into a hornet's nest. All of a sudden, the hornets came out, they stung. Bang! And they weren't power shots, but they were the kind of punches that win that kind of fight. And you could see that Taylor knew exactly. She was really on point. She was sharp. She looked a little bigger. She looked like she was on a weight program or something. Her shoulders, her back. She just looked a little bigger to me in this fight for some reason, in that kind of muscular sort of way. But again, to not call that boxing, to not appreciate the counterpunching, the pot shotting with the right hand against the southpaw, using the southpaw killer, putting together 5, 6 really fast. I'm not saying they were hard punches, but really fast combinations, the way she was able to just run them off. To not appreciate that, and not to appreciate that the wars they've been through, I think they showed. I said before this fight in the breakdown that they had left something in the ring. That didn't mean they were going to show up in crutches. That didn't mean they were going to have trouble walking up the steps. But it means that physically and emotionally, mentally, something was left behind. It has to be in those first two wars. And I think, Bud, you saw that, especially in Serrano. Because the Serrano's, it's more on Serrano, on her shoulders, to bring the fire. Because that's her style. If she doesn't, she loses. She's not going to outbox Taylor on the outside. That ain't happening. That's not her style. So, in a way, it's unfair. And when I say unfair, I don't really mean unfair like it means in the world of unfair. But the burden in a boxing way was for her to be, again, the instigator. The one who was going to, if you're going to make a fire, somebody has to put the first spark on the flame. And for her to always have that burden to create that flame, coming off those two wars, it was a lot to ask. And I think you saw it. I saw it. I saw some of the wear, some of the tarnishing, some of, again, where she just wasn't mentally able. She tried, and Taylor, again, through those quick combos, controlled range real well. She tried to close the gap starting around the fifth round. It took her a few rounds to get her engine going. And then Serrano started to try to really close the gap. But I think some of the fire's been taken out of her. When you've been cut the way she was cut in that second fight, and there's a woman being cut. It's not a man. It's different. I don't care what people say. I'm telling you what is real in the world of hurt. When you've been hurt, you've been cut, you've been hit with that many punches that they both have, and you've gone through the kind of wars that they went through in those two first ones, you come into the third one, you might not be as willing to get into that kind of fight again. It doesn't mean you're any less of a person, any less of a gladiator, no, I'm not saying that. I have nothing but respect for two of these women, for the both of them. They are tremendous. They are women to look up to in those kind of ways. But I do think that they're human. They are human. We forget that. And I think that you saw some of the damage from the first two fights, as I talked about, by the approach of Serrano, where again, it was hard for her to go into that flame, to willingly just rush into that flame again. I think that she was a little more tentative. I think you saw it. And I think those are the reasons why. And again, it's her. She's the one who always has to kind of go into the flame. Taylor's the one that once the flame's there, she's gonna light up with you. But the pressure is on Serrano.
No, absolutely. That's a great breakdown, great points. I thought the same watching it, but I want to ask you this. Was it from the damage and the mental stuff that you're touching on now, or was it potentially a combination of maybe the wrong game plan by her training camp and her coach? And I say that because almost like an amateur watching her at times throwing air punches. And it wasn't a range finder. It was almost a range protector. And I feel like, was it what you're saying, and I agree with you, or was it also the combination of the wrong game plan that made her fight a more tentative style of fight instead of engaging and getting inside like she did the first two times?
I think that that's a brilliant point that you bring up. And it's a point that really it needs to be brought up and it needs to be examined. And I'll tell you how I would deal with it right now is that, yes, I think there's validity to what you just said. That was their game plan. It was a completely different game plan. I mean, you couldn't be more different. It couldn't be more of a contrast to the first two game plans. No doubt about it. And they made it very clear. You heard it in the corner, as you said, that her trainer and her had this game plan to fight this way. And you saw it. You saw she was more cerebral. She was more thoughtful. She was more cautious. She was coming in there in a very, she was trying to be aggressive, but again, in a very careful, cautious way of not getting counted. So yeah, it definitely was part of what they planned, that they put in their mind, we're going to fight different. But my final analysis of you bringing up that point would be this. Why? There was a reason for it. Did the trainers see in camp? First of all, the first reason is that, I want to pull the curtain back and see what's behind what the great point you just brought up. First of all, they know that they took a lot of punishment. They both did. And they know why. They were aggressive. She counterpunched. But why? Why now? Besides that it was 2 wars, but why, as you said, the game plan's so different? Maybe the coach knew in camp that it had to be different. He saw his fight. I had a fighter that was getting in a big fight and was late in the fighter's career. And I saw in camp that I had to change the game plan. I saw it. I said, wow, his legs aren't the same. His durability's not the same. I have to. We're not going to win this fight if I don't change the way we're approaching it. He's older. He's taking more punches. He's at a point now where there has to be a change. He can't fight the way that previously I was planning on him fighting. And possibly the coach saw that. That's the coach's job. That's what the coach's eyes is supposed to pick up. That, hey, I have to come up with a game plan that's different. And maybe for 2 reasons, Bud. One reason is for the physical reason, and the other is for what we touched on early, the most important reason, the mental reason. Maybe he saw a fighter who, to get through the camp, to have that zest, to have that same spark, to have that same fire, he needed to give a different approach to her.